Welcome to, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our AARP On Tap event. It is Wednesday, September 30th at 6:30, and you have registered to attend the first of our 4 On Tap events here for the fall of 2020. My name is Eric Nelson. I am the Associate State Director for Advocacy for AARP South Dakota. I've been in this position for the last 8 years. I'm from Madison, South Dakota originally, and my wife and my 2 sons reside here in Sioux Falls. We're happy to have you with us this evening. Little background. Obviously, 2020 is a very unusual year, and that's kind of put us in a position to do these virtually. In the last, at least 4 to 5 years, I have gone around the state this time of year and done our On Tap events in person. And many of you on this call or on this event with us tonight have probably been to some of our On Tap events in person, where we got together at a local bar and grill and had a drink and shared some food and talked some policy, talked some politics, talked some election. Well, we're doing that in a different way this year. We've got 4 virtual On Taps scheduled for this fall, tonight being our first one, and it's called Intro to Civics. Next Tuesday, October 6th, we'll be talking about your impact on the federal government with Bill Sweeney with our Government Affairs Department with the National AARP office. On October 13th, we'll be discussing your impact on state government with State Senator Deb Sohold. And then our final one is on October 21st, which is to discuss your impact on local government. And joining us that evening will be Rapid City Mayor Allender and Sioux Falls Mayor Tenhagen. All of those events are scheduled for 6:30 Central Time, 5:30 Mountain Time, and we hope you can make it to all of them. As you may recall, if you've been to one of our On Tap events before, that we always usually have a little fun giveaway at those events, or like I said, we'll share a drink. Well, this year we're trying to still incorporate that, but in a different way. So if you've registered and while supplies last, you will be receiving some mixed drink packets in the mail. So whether you want to have those tonight or at some time this weekend, feel free to have a drink on us this fall. And you'll also receive a wine opener and a bottle opener in the mail from us as well, to enjoy your favorite bottle of wine or favorite bottle of beer. So we wanted to still try to incorporate some of the fun things we do with these On Taps, but in a different way. And one other great thing that we have, another great thing that we have going on is we're doing a sweepstakes this year. And our sweepstakes, I want to make sure I get this right, includes a cocktail shaker set with a bar mat and a $100 Visa gift card for a total value of $145. Now, to be eligible to qualify for these, you will need to attend all 4 events. And if you attend all 4 On Taps, you will receive a brief 4-question questionnaire to fill out. And once you receive that questionnaire, you will fill it out, submit it, and be eligible for the drawing. And the drawing for our sweepstakes will be held on October 29th. So we really appreciate you being here with us, and we'll move into the program portion of our On Tap event here tonight. I'll say that if you want to ask a question or make a comment, there is a chat function that you can use, and please submit that if you would like. And we promise to not hold you here for we hopefully promise to not hold you here for longer than 45 minutes. So with that, we'll get started with this evening's On Tap. I would like to introduce our moderator for the evening, Jill Tyler, our volunteer state president for AARP South Dakota. She's been in that position for the last 4 years. She also is a professor at the University of South Dakota. And I'd like to turn it over to Jill to serve as our moderator for this evening's event. Thank you, Jill.
Thank you, Eric. Good evening, and let me add my welcome to Eric's. Welcome to AARP South Dakota's On Tap discussion. We're calling tonight's program a revisit and a brushing up on our high school education, reintroduction to civics. what we learned in high school about the responsibilities and the privileges of being a citizen in a representative government. I'll be moderating this evening. As Eric said, I'm Jill Tyler, the volunteer state president for AARP South Dakota. And it's my privilege to be visiting this evening with Dr. Michael Card. Michael Card is a Timberlake native, and he began his higher education right here at USD and earned his doctoral degree at The Ohio State University. He is a professor in the Department of Political Science at the University of South Dakota. Dr. Card specializes in public policy and management of governmental and nonprofit organizations. Welcome, Michael.
I'm pleased to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks so much for being here. So it's my privilege to represent the more than 100,000 members of AARP in South Dakota. And we are very interested in the election process. We're very interested in the roles that we play as citizens in our local governments and state and at the federal level. So I want to begin with a question that should be pretty familiar to us. And that is, why is it important for American citizens to vote?
Well, thank you for giving me that softball. I hope I can hit a home run with it. It's important to vote because we live in a democratic republic. That is, democracy means the people rule. And our state's motto is, under God, the people rule. So many citizens choose to vote because voting lets their elected officials know what sorts of services they would like from their government. They also can talk about what they're willing to pay in taxes for those services. So if I think I'm paying too much in taxes, I have the ability to contact my elected officials, but it's really easy to vote and let them know that I approve or disapprove of what they're doing. So voting lets citizens have a say in who represents them, as well as for having a direct say on laws through ballot measures. And if you don't vote, essentially, you're letting someone else make decisions for you. You can consider this, that nationwide, only 60% of eligible voters vote in a presidential election. That means they're letting, or the other 40% are letting the 60% vote for them. In 2016, 70% of eligible voters in South Dakota voted in the presidential election. In 2018, 65% of South Dakota's voters voted. In the 2020 primary election, only 25% of eligible voters cast ballots for who would represent their political party in the general election that's going to occur next month.
Wow. Wow. So it's more likely for South Dakotans to vote in a presidential election year. Am I right about that? Is that why we dipped just a little in 2018?
Well, there's a lot more attention paid to presidential elections, even though our local governments influence our lives much more.
That's a great point. I'm really proud to be an AARP volunteer because our work in advocacy and voter engagement is nonpartisan. It's become increasingly difficult to know who to believe in the current very hyper-partisan political culture. It seems to me that it's worse than I can ever remember. Can you give us a little historical context on that?
I can. There's most of us weren't alive. I'm pretty sure that none of us were alive in what I would call the yellow journalism days of the 1870s and 1880s. During that time, about the only way that you could have contact with candidates in a national election was actually to show up at a railroad station where they would be on a whistle stop tour, and you could hear directly what the candidate said. That left it to newspapers to report on what they said. And many newspapers engaged in what became known as yellow journalism. That is, the newspapers, often communities had two newspapers, and those newspapers might represent the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, and they were a lot more partisan than we are today. So, you know, if we think it's bad now, the newspapers had no qualms about telling the truth.
Wow. Wow, that actually does make me feel a little bit better just to know that it was at one time worse than it is now.
Yeah.
That helps a little. And that's why in towns still across South Dakota, we still have the Star Republican or the Times Democrat. Am I right?
That's right. That's where those names come from. And some, like the Argus Leader, used to be a Republican newspaper, and then it switched, and now with there being only one newspaper in Sioux Falls, it's more neutral.
All right, thanks. So thank you. And one of the big questions that I want to ask tonight, because I know that our members want to hear the answer, how is it that we can make the best decisions about our ballots this year?
Well, every vote matters. And I was certainly brought up by two World War II veterans who were very clear about civic responsibilities. And one of the biggest responsibilities that they instilled upon me was to educate myself about the candidates for whom I might vote, as well as to make good decisions in my voting as to what's going to be best in the long run for me, as well as for the jurisdiction, whether it be the city, the county, the state, or the nation. And I think one of the best ways that we can engage in making good decisions is probably something similar to what the League of Women Voters have as a 7-step process. The first point is decide what you're looking for in a candidate. And that is what positions are they taking on issues that are important to you? What are their leadership qualities? What experience do they bring to office that would let them enact these policies that you find favorable about them? The second point is to find out about the candidates by looking at the sample ballot in the newspaper. It's also available through the Secretary of State's voter information portal, or your local library, or the county auditor's office itself. You know, I'm going to play prop here. I downloaded the sample ballot for Clay County, where I live, and this way I can look and see exactly how the ballot is laid out, who the candidates are, which then gives me the ability to go, if I didn't know them, to find out more about them and see, is this someone that I wish to see in office? There are often candidate forums that are held, and so I can make a pretty informed choice there. The third one is gathering materials. I've sort of gone ahead with some of that. You look at the material that they put out. You look at the material that's put out by interest groups that you trust, that have interests that are similar to yours. One might be AARP. You can also see what they say that's reported in the newspapers, and you can sometimes see for state legislative candidates to listen to South Dakota Public Broadcasting and look on their website, and you'll hear in the candidate's own words what they're trying to accomplish if they were to be elected. The fourth point is to evaluate these candidate stands on issues that are important to you. Again, you look at organizations whose objectives you support, or that they support the same objectives that you do, and see how they might grade the candidates. The fifth point is to learn about their leadership abilities, because it's one thing to say, this is what I believe, but we often have a knowing doing gap, and that is, can they put what they say into effect? Do they have experience in leading? And leading isn't such a big deal, but it certainly is one where what we're looking for the candidate to do is to have experience getting something done. And whether it's in a church, whether it's in a social organization, whether it's in a business setting, whether it's in previous governmental experience, can they put their ideas into policy? That is here's what our organization is going to do, and then see it through if they're looking in an executive position. The next point is to learn how other people that you trust view the candidate. And to the extent possible, talk to the candidates. And then you have to sort this out. Which candidates' views are on issues that you agree with the most? Who ran the fairest campaign? Who told you what they would do and didn't focus on what's wrong with the other candidate? Which candidate demonstrated the most knowledge on the issues that are important to you? And which candidate has the leadership qualities that you're looking for? And if the choice is clear, pick a candidate.
Wow, that is a big job and speaks a lot to the responsibilities that a voter really has. That I worry about some of the people I have voted for, to the extent that I had really done that much homework. I thank you. That's a reminder of my civics class, and it's also a real challenge.
Well, it was Churchill who said that democracy is the worst form of government except every other form that's ever been tried. And it takes work to make this system of government work. And it means that we have to get involved. Otherwise, we're letting someone else do our thinking for us.
That's great. That's a great challenge. One of our main concerns at AARP this year is that we can make sure that all South Dakotans are able to vote safely. Many of us have already requested absentee ballots. Can you talk a little about absentee ballots? Is this a secure option for South Dakotans?
Well, I think there's two ways to address this, one of which is a large portion of CARES money has been allocated to county election officials to make voting in person as safe as possible. I voted in person during our primary election, and there were plexiglass shields between us and the election workers. It's as much of a non-contact with another person as you can get. I felt physically safe voting in person. Now, that's the primary election. You may choose to vote absentee, either because, and South Dakota offers absentee voting for any reason that you choose. So you may not be in town to vote that day. You may choose that, I just want to vote now and not have to worry about voting on that particular day. So our absentee voting is pretty secure. I think it's secure enough that if you cast your ballot using South Dakota's absentee voting process, your vote will get counted for the candidates that you choose or the issues that you choose. One of the things, the first things that you probably need to do is to, excuse me, I got a little frog in my throat here, is to remember that there are lots of people that are trying to, we have the voter information portal. That's what VIP stands for, although all your members are very important people. So that could be what's going on here. Voting in South Dakota, our voting system has been deemed to be very secure by a number of organizations and even political organizations in terms of those that are more conservative as well as those might be deemed to be more liberal. In this world where both the National Security Council and the U.S. Senate Intelligence Committee have noted that there are Russian, Chinese, and Iranian hackers trying to influence our election, and Russian hackers are trying to hack our election systems themselves, our election officials at the statewide level have been on high alert, and they've put some procedures in place that I think make our system even more secure than it's been in prior years. The first one is Secretary of State Barnett sponsored an election security teleconference. I was able to attend that, and it talked about securing the election system, making sure that the way that we count ballots is secure itself. In South Dakota, we use paper ballots and optical scan readers so that if somebody tries to hack into the election system and rewrite what gets counted, we've got the paper ballot as a backup, as an audit trail, so to speak, to make sure that the ballots match up with what gets counted in the machine. In addition, they've sort of, I think the word is hardened, is what the computer scientists call the mechanisms to make the programming secure from hackers. So now, if we get to the point of actually looking at how do you cast an absentee ballot, as was put up on the screen, one thing that you can do is to, well, let me step back a second. If you're going to vote absentee, the first thing that you need to do is request an absentee ballot. Some people requested an absentee ballot back for the primary election, and you could check the box then if you wanted an absentee ballot sent to you for the general election in November. You can check on the voter information portal whether you did that or not. And I think we can even put up a picture of the voter information portal. I think. There it is. This is what it looks like. And if you fill in your first name and your last name, and then I believe you have to put in your birth date, and I can't remember what else is on. Oh, and your zip code. There it is. And then there will be that security number to put in, and it's case sensitive. So in this particular one, it would be a small x, 8C, capital Z, and capital G. That again is security to make sure that no one's looking at information. This is what's right off of your voter registration form. This will give you access to that sample ballot that I showed you earlier, as well as it'll tell you where you're going to vote if you vote in person, and it allows you to request an absentee ballot. You can verify the date that the county auditor received your request if you check back after you fill in that form, and the date that the auditor mailed your ballot to you, and you can find out from there the date that they received your completed ballot when you mail it in. Be sure to follow the directions to request a ballot and to return it to your county election official, which is most likely going to be your county auditor. That will get your vote counted.
Great. Thank you very much, Michael. That gives us a great and much better understanding of how those absentee ballots work, and also of those safeguards. I'm so glad that you were able to give the insights about the safeguards that are already in place. You mentioned that some of that money that has helped us to harden our computer systems and to kind of raise the level of security came from the CARES Act. That's a result of the CARES Act is the Coronavirus Relief Act. Am I right about that?
That is correct.
Good. Okay, great. So we have a follow-up question from one of our listeners, wondering whether all counties have the same ballot counting procedures, or do ballot counting procedures differ from county to county?
They may differ from county to county because, well, I'll pick on Jones County because there are 1,000 residents in all of Jones County, and their procedures are very likely to not have an optical scan reader in Jones County to count the ballots. They may be counting them by hand, or they may be taking them to a county close where they'll be counted by an optical scan reader. For many of the counties that have the more population you have, the more likely there's going to be an optical scan reader in the county seat in the auditor's office.
Right, interesting. So you've given us a lot of, as I said, you've given me some great challenges about how to become a better informed voter, which is exactly what I want to be. what else can you tell us about developing a voting plan? So I think I've always just thought I'm just going to go and vote on election day. But can you give us some more information about voting in person? What kind of identification I need to vote? Those kinds of concerns.
Well, you need a government issued ID with a photo to be able to cast a vote. And you'll need to, if you do an absentee ballot, you'll either need to have your ballot notarized or your request notarized, or have a photocopy of your absentee, or excuse me, of your photo ID. Or if you don't have access to make a photocopy, you can call your county auditor, who will give you the instructions on how to take a picture of your ID with your phone and send it to the county auditor. Each county there has a slightly different process for handling those photo IDs, because I'm sure that if they just get an email or a text with a photo ID, whose is this? So that's why the Secretary of State has requested that you contact the county auditor if you need to follow that. But you will need a photo ID issued by a government. If you're obviously most of your members probably aren't students, but a photo ID of a student ID would work. A tribal ID will work. Your driver's license will work. A passport or a passport card will work. I think there's one more. Any federal government ID. And I'm probably missing another one too, but all of those will work. And again, if you've got another one, call your county auditor, and the county auditor will be able to direct you to the full list of photo IDs that are accepted.
Good. And it does have to be photo.
It has to have a photograph on it.
Okay. All right. Great. Good. Okay. Here is a question that I feel like I have to have this question answered for me every election cycle. I have looked over my sample ballot, and I need to ask, what is the difference between an IM, an initiated measure, and a constitutional amendment? This is at the state level, I believe.
Well, they can be at the local level as well, except local governments usually don't have a constitution. They may have a charter, but they don't have a constitution. Okay. So we have 3 of these measures in South Dakota. Starting in 1898, South Dakota gave people the power to create legislation. So the legislature shares the ability to create general laws with the voting population. So there can be people who will carry around petitions to create a new law, and those are called initiated measures. 5% of the votes for governor in the last election are the number of signatures that they need. There's some identification they'll have to show you. They'll have to let you know what the issue is about. But in terms of looking on the ballot, one of the easy ways to tell whether you're voting on an initiated measure or a constitutional amendment is it will say initiated measure, and it will give you a number. These are numbered starting back in about the year 2000. The one that's on the ballot this year is initiated measure 26. And then it will say, I have to look at my ballot. What does it say? An initiated measure to legalize marijuana for medical use. If it were a constitutional amendment, there's a little higher standard in terms of the number of people who have to support putting that on the ballot. And that would read as an amendment to the South Dakota Constitution authorizing the legislature to allow sports wagering in Deadwood. That's Constitutional Amendment B. And Constitutional Amendment A is an amendment to the South Dakota Constitution to legalize, regulate, and tax marijuana, and to require the legislature to pass laws regarding hemp, as well as the laws ensuring access to marijuana for medical use. Now, the Secretary of State's office on their website also provides a voter information packet on initiatives and constitutional amendments. And these are all described in the Attorney General provides an explanation as to what the legal effect will be. And then there is the proponents of the measure will say what they think it will do, what effect it will have, as well as the opponents will say what effect they think it will have.
Oh, very well. So so there I can hear what the Attorney General but describes as the impact of
the legal impact. That's right.
Right. And then I can also read the argument advocated by proponents and by opponents.
Right.
Very well. Great. Thank you very much.
And those are available on the Secretary of State's website. Many libraries also have copies or have printed off copies from the Secretary of State's website.
Okay, excellent. Michael, you are just a fount of information this evening. I had a little bit of I won't call it an argument, but I will say that there may be a little bit of a bet, okay, about whether I can write in a candidate.
Well, how much do you want to know about this? The quick answer is no, or you can, and that vote won't be counted.
Okay.
Because in South Dakota, we have adopted a system that provides for a secret ballot. And the reason for the secret ballot was in the 1880s and the 1870s, partisan political interests printed up ballots. So a Republican Party might be a red ballot today, and we might see a blue ballot for the Democratic Party, and the green people might have their own ballot. And they would ask you which ballot you wanted when you walked in to vote. And that was the ballot that you received. And so you voted for everybody on that political party.
Wow.
During the 1880s, unfortunately, it took the assassination of President Garfield to get reforms in this process. And this process was one that we, at the same time, adopted what was called the Australian ballot, which was the government put together the ballot and divided either by office or by political party in columns. South Dakota divides up our ballot based on the office, and they do a random draw as to which person is listed first, second, third, fourth, and so on, running for that particular office in that box. But the purpose is to avoid corruption. So we often have our ballots, if you're using an optical scanner, it's probably in a hard plastic container that you put your ballot in and then slip it into the ballot box. Voting absentee, you're likely to get two envelopes, one that is the regular postal envelope and an envelope inside, so that no political party hack can see how you voted and either give you patronage or influence your vote. It's cast, and you're the only one who knows what you cast as a ballot.
Okay, that's great, but I don't know tell me about how that fits in with, secrecy. I get that. Nobody should see the ballot, but why can't I write in a candidate?
Well, if you wrote someone's name on it, then that would identify, you might write, see, Jill Tyler voted for Mike Card today, and then an election judge may not, oh yeah, we need to get some gravitas towards Jill for doing that. And so the election officials at the time of the canvass, the optical scan readers will bounce those out. That's why we try to fill in those little dots and try not to mark all over the ballot. But they'll make a judgment with with election judges that represent different political parties as to whether there was a nefarious intent or whether it just doesn't meet election law, such as a write-in candidate. Normally what I was in, because I had asked this question and I was told that your ballot would be cast, but not for that particular office.
Oh, okay. So they wouldn't take any vote at all for that office, but they would still count my votes for the other.
Unless they thought there was a nefarious intent to identify yourself so that you would be recognized as voting. And that's up to the judgment of the election judges.
Okay. All right. Great. I won't tell you whether I won or lost that bet, but I think we're winding up. We're going to go with our last question, Michael, and I'm going to make it kind of a sweeping question. What else can you tell us about how to? No, what one piece of advice do you have? I'm sorry, I already asked you the question about the voting plan. What one piece of advice do you have for South Dakota voters this year?
Well, it takes time and effort to cast a wise ballot and to get your interests represented so that you cast your ballot for someone who's likely to serve as someone who is truly representing you. So my advice is to get to know the candidates by reading their promotional materials, looking at what they say they're going to do and how they're going to act and which interest groups are supporting them that you come to trust. And I hope you'll feel confident in casting your ballot that this person will represent you. We live in an age where there's lots of things that may challenge us from voting, but I think South Dakota's voting system is extremely secure. I think that your vote cast in South Dakota will be counted the way that you want it to be counted. And, you know, this is how democracy works. And this is the work that it takes to get there. So I thank you for asking these questions. It may seem onerous, but most of the time, if you ask your friends, if you trust what they have to say, that's another source of information. Go with your trust and vote your values.
Thank you so much, Michael. That is great advice. And you know, I've heard people say don't ever talk politics or religion, but I think talking politics is a great idea. Some of the best, most thought-provoking, really useful information has been the result of talking to friends and people who held similar values to mine.
You know, so, I think that our relationship with our government is one that we have to cultivate. And that means we have to engage in civil dialogue with our friends and to listen to what each other has to say and why they might believe what they say. And we might actually learn something. It's the old thing, we have 2 ears and only 1 mouth, so we should do twice as much listening.
Well, I've learned a lot tonight, Michael, and I'm sure that the other members who are on our feed tonight have as well. Eric, are you set to come back on? Did you learn a lot this evening?
Oh, what a wonderful perspective and historical background of government and voting in South Dakota, Professor Card. We really appreciate you offering your expertise to this very important issue, and obviously it's an issue that's at the top of our mind this time of year, October of 2020. Really, just 4 weeks from today, we cast our votes on for the general election, and we were so pleased that you took the time to join us. And Jill, thank you for being such a great moderator. The questions that you guys presented and the answers you gave were very informative, and we're happy that you were able to join us this evening. I'll wrap it up now here as we approach the 7:10 time here and try to get you out of here right at 45 minutes. What a great start to our on tap events for the next month. thanks again to Professor Card and Jill for being with us this evening. A quick reminder that our next On Tap is this upcoming Tuesday, October 6th at 6:30 with Bill Sweeney. He is a VP of Government Affairs for AARP. He's based in our national office in Washington, D.C. And we've got a number of issues on the federal end that we want to talk to him about and inform you of. And we're so happy that he can join you again. 2020 is a different year, and we're trying to give you a different experience for our On Taps, and we hope you can be with us next Tuesday. Beyond that, again, thank you for joining us this evening, and we look forward to seeing you next Tuesday. Thanks again.